Title: The Last Flight of Earl Before the Zeta Attack. Chapter 1: Keep Watching the Skies. The year was 2225, and Earth was no longer alone. For centuries, humanity had peered into the cosmos, searching for signs of intelligent life. When the Zeta finally responded, the world celebrated. They were tall, gray-skinned beings, eerily humanoid in appearance. Their arrival was heralded as the beginning of a new era, but within weeks, their true intentions became clear. Master pilot Earl Kessler was assigned a historic mission: escort the Earth ambassador to the Zeta mothership for formal negotiations. He had spent his entire life flying, earning a reputation as one of Earth's finest pilots. But as he guided the sleek diplomatic cruiser over the Pacific, off the coast of Los Angeles, something felt wrong. "Rebecca, you still there, kiddo?" Earl's voice crackled through the visor link. "Of course!" Rebecca's excited voice filled his headset. "How's the mission going, Grandpa?" "What's it like up there?" Earl chuckled, adjusting the ship's thrusters. Beautiful as ever, endless blue sky above, deep blue ocean below. But you know what I always say. Rebecca grinned on the other end. "Keep watching the skies." "That's right," Earl said, nodding. "Always look up, always be curious." As he spoke, the massive Zeta mothership came into view. It loomed over the ocean like a silent, ominous monolith, reflecting the sunlight in eerie silver waves. The ambassador, seated behind Earl, straightened in his chair. "This is it, Captain Kessler, the dawn of a new age." But Earl wasn't so sure. His grip tightened on the controls as the ship's sensors flickered erratically. Something was wrong, a sudden red flash on his console. "Incoming energy signature detected. Warning." A beam of blinding energy shot from the Zeta ship, striking Earl's cruiser dead on. The ship lurched violently. Sirens blared. The controls sparked and died. "Rebecca!" Earl shouted into the link. "I love you, kid. Tell your mom." The transmission cut out as the ship spiraled out of control, plummeting toward the Earth below. Rebecca screamed as static filled her headset. She yanked it off, her hands shaking. She ran into the kitchen. "Mom?" she called out, but the house was eerily quiet. No answer. Her heart pounded as she grabbed the comm device from the counter and dialed her mother's number. It rang and rang. Finally, her mother's voice came through, breathless and tense. "Rebecca, are you okay?" "Mom, Grandpa's ship, he's gone. The aliens shot him down." Her mother's sharp inhale was followed by a moment of silence. Then, "Listen to me. Stay inside, lock the doors. I'm coming home as soon as I can. Just don't go outside. Do you understand me?" Rebecca nodded frantically, even though her mother couldn't see her. "Okay, just hurry, please." "I will. I love you." Before Rebecca could respond, the call cut off. A strange humming noise filled the air. She turned toward the window and gasped. Above the city, sleek, black alien drones streaked across the sky, firing beams of light at buildings, vehicles, anything that moved. Fire and smoke rose in the distance. People screamed, running in all directions. Meatball barked, trying to tug her back inside. Rebecca didn't need to be told twice. She dashed back into the house, bolting the door before diving into the basement. The war for Earth had begun. Chapter 2: The Morning. After, Rebecca sat curled in the corner of the basement, clutching Meatball close to her chest. She had no idea how much time had passed since the attack began. Hours, a whole night? Her mother still hadn't come home. The house above was eerily silent. No hum of electricity, no distant sounds of the city, just an oppressive quiet, broken only by the occasional distant explosion. Meatball whined, squirming in her arms. He needed to go outside. Rebecca hesitated before standing. She moved cautiously up the basement steps and cracked the door open. Sunlight streamed in, but the world beyond was unrecognizable. Half the city was gone. Buildings lay in ruins, smoke rising from the shattered skyline. Cars were overturned and abandoned in the streets. Fires burned in the distance, and the sky had taken on a sickly gray hue. She stepped cautiously onto the porch, her heart hammering in her chest. The distant hum of alien drones made her stomach twist. "Mom," she whispered, hoping, praying for an answer. Nothing. Meatball tugged at the leash she had instinctively grabbed before stepping outside. He sniffed at the air and let out a soft growl. Rebecca's fingers clenched around the leash. She couldn't stay here. Not with her mother missing, not with no way of knowing if help was coming. She had to find her grandfather's crash site. If there was any chance he was alive, she had to take it. Swallowing hard, she took a deep breath and made a decision. She would pack what supplies she could, grab her solar-charged airboard, and leave before the aliens came back to finish what they started. The journey to find her grandfather had begun. Chapter 3. The Road to Nowhere. Rebecca moved swiftly through the ruins of the city, her solar-charged airboard gliding silently over the cracked pavement. Meatball sat firmly on the back, his small body steady as they weaved through the wreckage. Smoke still rose from distant fires, and the occasional explosion rumbled in the distance. The world had changed overnight. As she passed through an abandoned intersection, a shadow flickered overhead. She ducked instinctively, her heart hammering. A Zeta patrol drone hovered above the ruins, scanning for survivors. Holding her breath, she pressed herself against a collapsed building, Meatball crouching low beside her. The drone's eerie hum filled the air as it moved on, oblivious to their presence. Rebecca exhaled and pressed forward, her eyes scanning for shelter. She soon came upon an old subway tunnel, its entrance partially collapsed. It was dark, but it might provide safety. She ventured inside, keeping close to the walls. The tunnel stretched into darkness, but she wasn't alone. Faint voices echoed ahead. She crept forward and saw a small group of survivors huddled around a makeshift fire. One of them, a woman with short-cropped hair and tired eyes, noticed her. "You shouldn't be out here alone, kid. The Zeta have released something worse than drones." Rebecca frowned. "What do you mean?" A man beside her sighed. "The bloodhounds. They're hunting us now." A chilling, inhuman clicking sound echoed through the tunnel. Rebecca's breath caught in her throat. Something was coming. Chapter 4. The hunt begins. Rebecca was exhausted. Her legs ached, her body felt heavy, and every breath came with a burning reminder of how far she'd traveled. The smog-choked horizon of Los Angeles loomed ahead, its shattered skyline casting long shadows over the desolate highways leading into the city. She wanted to rest, but there was no time. A sudden guttural clicking echoed behind her. It was close, too close. She spun around just as the Zeta bloodhound lunged from the ruins. Rebecca kicked her airboard into motion, Meatball clinging to the back. The monstrous creature, an 8-foot-long nightmare of muscle and chitin, bounded after them on 6 powerful legs. Its exoskeleton gleamed in the dim light, its eyeless head turning toward her, sensing heat and movement. She weaved through abandoned cars, dodging debris. The bloodhound crashed through obstacles, relentless in its pursuit. Up ahead, a skeletal office building stood, its glass windows shattered. She turned sharply and shot inside, skidding across the dusty tile floors. The bloodhound followed, its claws clicking against the concrete. Meatball barked sharply, and an idea sparked in Rebecca's mind. She bolted for an open window at the far end of the room. The bloodhound snarled, gaining ground. At the last possible second, Meatball darted toward the window, then veered hard to the right. The bloodhound, locked onto its prey, leaped after him. Straight through the empty window frame, Rebecca skidded to a stop and turned in time to see the beast plummet 5 stories, landing with a sickening crunch. Breathless, she scooped up Meatball. "You're a genius." The pug wagged his tail triumphantly. But the victory was short-lived. More clicking sounds echoed from the streets below. The hunt wasn't over. Chapter 5. The Wreckage on the Shore. Rebecca finally reached the coastline, her airboard humming softly as she slowed to a stop. The salty breeze carried the scent of burnt metal and ocean mist. Ahead of her, wreckage stretched across the sand, twisted steel, shattered glass, and the remains of what had once been her grandfather's ship. She took a shaky step forward, scanning the ruins. Her breath caught when she saw it. A simple grave dug into the damp sand, a crude marker sticking from the top. Her throat tightened. Grandpa. She knelt beside the grave, running her fingers through the sand. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered a small prayer. "I made it, Grandpa. I made it to you." Meatball sniffed the air, then suddenly barked, sharp and insistent. Rebecca turned, startled. Footsteps crunched behind her. A voice, rough but familiar, broke the silence. I could recognize that bark in my sleep. She spun around, eyes wide. Standing just beyond the wreckage, battered but alive, was Earl Kessler. "Grandpa," she gasped, stumbling to her feet. Earl grinned, his face lined with exhaustion and relief. "You found me, kiddo. How did you—" Rebecca launched into his arms, gripping him tightly. "I never stopped looking." Earl let out a chuckle, but it faded quickly. His expression darkened as he glanced toward the sky. "We don't have much time. The Zeta—" They're coming. Rebecca swallowed hard. The hunt wasn't over.